everyone. We are privileged to have with us today Hazel Brief. Hazel Brief is the mother of Surgeon First Class Yona Brief, Hashem Yikum Damo, a soldier who displayed incredible bravery on October 7th. And I think I'm going to stop here because you have so much to share. It's such a remarkable story that I don't want to reveal too much information.
Yeah, I just want to present Nishmat with Sefer Tehillim that was donated to us because, as you'll hear, Tehillim is a very big part of Yona's story and what was very essential to his fight. So I just wanted to offer this to you guys as a little dedication inside about Yona, and
so much.
that people should, if you see it in the library, please say Tehillim in Yona and all the soldiers' merit. It's very, very important.
Absolutely.
And
Thank you.
very important.
Okay.
Okay.
So you can tell me when you want me to.
Okay. So I'm gonna kind of sit and stand. Okay. So we're gonna spend like the next hour talking about Yona. If you guys have questions, usually it's better to ask at the end, but if there's something that's not clear, please let me know. Usually when I speak in English, it's pretty clear. It's sometimes when I speak in Hebrew, like, I didn't get that. So I'm going to take you on a journey that we as a family have been on. It's been our zchut to be on Yona's journey that we continue to be on until this day. Okay, so we can go to the next slide. So we made Aliyah in 1994 to Renana on August 31st on the hottest day of the year to an apartment on the 4th floor with no balcony or air conditioning. And it was full of cockroaches. So that's how we started our Aliyah. I remember sitting on the floor crying to my mother. We made Aliyah with 3 kids. Our first 3 kids, Nava, who went to Nishmat, our son Micha, and then my next daughter, Yasmina, who also went to Nishmat, and then we had 3 more kids along the way. Since our Aliyah, so we had then Libi, who also is a Nishmat graduate, and Abiel, and Yardir Yona. I just want to say something about Aliyah. Hang on a second.
Okay.
It's okay. Yeah, they're cute pictures. It's very cute. I always say to people about Aliyah, Aliyah is like a love story. So, you know, anytime everybody who has a partner, husband, spouse, knows there's tough times and there's easy times, but we never stop loving. And that's really what Aliyah is, to never stop loving this country. It's very easy to love it when the times are good, and it's harder to love it when the times are hard. So we keep loving. We can go to the next one. So as I said, Yona's, hang on there. So Yona's the youngest of 5 kids, go back.
I'm sorry. Hold on.
You can see all, you're going the wrong way. Okay, so there's cute Yona. He was a very easy baby. He was actually what we call our surprise. We had 5 children, and we were basically done. But as we know, we don't run this world, God does. And God had other plans, and we were gifted with Yona. We also call Yona our surprise. I actually became pregnant in the year of Avilut for my mother, Tzipor Bat Chaim, and we decided to name Yona after my mom. That's how he got the name Yona. Now, Yona's name has a very funny story. The night before we made Aliyah, we were in Israel about maybe 10 years. My oldest daughter, Nava, who's now 35, and a parent herself, who was an alumni from Nishmat, overheard my husband and I speaking about his name. Now, Yona was born the Parsha of the Mishkan, so we love this word. We love the name Betzalel, right? Betzalel was the architect. And we had a friend in America, and his name was Vitzi, and we thought that was such a cool name, and we were so olim, right? So my daughter hears that we want to call him Betzalel Yona. And she comes in the door, all of 10 years old, and she said, absolutely not. You will destroy him. You will never have friends. You can never call him Betzalel. It's a terrible name for Israeli kids. You have to switch it. So the night before his bris, we actually did switch his name to Yona Betzalel, and that's why he is named that. Okay, we go on to the next one. So Yona loved Eretz Israel. He went on a teal every possible place he could. I don't think there was one Mayan that Yona has not jumped into as a child and as a young adult. He was a counselor at Bnei Akiva, and he was also a counselor for something called Kanfei Krembo, which is children who have some physical challenges. And he just loved being in Israel. And if you just just notice every single picture of Yona, he's smiling. To the next one. More pictures of Yona smiling as an adult, climbing, jumping, all over the place, always surrounded by friends. Yona truly breathed all of Eretz Israel. He really felt it. He just loved to get out and walk and be in nature in Eretz Israel. This is very, very important. He liked to just go outside and make coffee like his friends over there. These are friends, these pictures, and you see other pictures of his friends. These are the boys who he was in Gone with. They grew up together in Modi'in, and they've become a very big part, of course, of our lives, and very supportive with Yona. So people know that Yona was injured on the 7th of October, but actually Yona's story starts before that. In May 2023, let me just say Yona is in the Duvdevan unit, and he is a medic. He's a combat medic. And his team was in Tulkarm, and they were finishing looking for terrorists, and there were a lot of bombs going off. A bomb went off right behind Yona, and Yona flew into the air, and Yona's legs were very, very badly injured. He was taken immediately to, wait, just hang on, go back. Sorry. I'll tell you when. Okay. He was taken to Beit Hospital. We got a call at 2 in the morning. Saying, I'm on my way. There's a little bit of blood, that's what he said. But, meet me at Beilinson. And I wrote a whole article about it for the Jerusalem Post. It was published in the Jerusalem Post about parents of combat soldiers and what that really means when you get these kinds of calls in the middle of the night. I'm happy to send a link to you if you guys want to read it. I think it really encapsulates what so many parents, especially with so many thousands of injured soldiers right now, are going through. But he was injured. He was in the hospital for a week and was given basically a medical discharge. He did not need to return to service. Yona decided that he didn't want to return. But I want to show you a few things. There's a lot of pressure for Yona to go back. The team loved Yona. He was a very good soldier. He was on a team of, I guess there's 12 or 14, and he was the only Dati kid. And his friends, a lot of them came from religious homes, but weren't practicing really anymore. And they knew they would come, on Friday nights if he needed a minyan to daven, or they would do all. They're very thoughtful and sensitive. And Yona somehow just made it work. It didn't matter that he, was davening in the morning, whatever it was. He just was able to kind of make it work amongst everybody, which made it really, really easy for everybody. And they loved him and they wanted him back. I want to show you a few things. One, I want to show you just a quick video, in a second I'm going to show it, of Yona after his injury in the hospital. He actually gets up and walks. So you can go ahead and click the next one and you'll see this video. He's coming down the hallway. While the is working on the sound, I'll show you, this is sort of an introduction to Army life. My husband and I didn't go to the Army. When he went back, Yona was gifted with this. And this is a piece of the pipe bombs that they got from the bomb that exploded on him. And his teammates thought it was very nice to put it on a plaque with the date. And they gave him first place in the high jump. Oh my gosh. I just burst into tears, and he just thought it was the best gift he could get from his friends. And we understood that this is very important for these boys to be able to joke about these things. This was the first time actually in over 2 years that someone from Duvdevan had been seriously injured. Duvdevan is a very, very careful and precise unit where very few people do get injured, but he was injured.
Oh, here it's open.
No, this. Okay, hold on. I'm sorry. Go up.
It's already
It's
up.
at the max.
Okay.
But I don't.
Hopefully it'll work. It's connected.
Nishmat's very good at Torah, not so at technology stuff.
I'm sorry, what?
I'm saying Nishmat's very good at Torah, technology's less stuff.
Yes. You can go back to that.
Can everyone hear?
You just change your output setting.
Yeah, it's not the right speaker.
I know, I just don't know how to transfer. Okay. Someone wants to help.
There's always one person then.
It's the youngest person in the room.
Always younger. So I'm going to talk about, Yona was injured in May, and he went back the month before, the 7th of October, so he went back in September. So he was at home, and I'm going to talk a little bit about the shikkum in just a second. See if I get this fixed. I don't have distractions. This video isn't so important because it's just me saying something to him, but there are other videos that are really very, I really would like for you to see.
Okay, amazing. Thank you for your patience.
Thank you.
Okay, should we go to the next slide or?
So Yona was sent to physical therapy by his unit to get over his injury. And remember, he did have a medical discharge, so he did not need to go back. And I took him to physical therapy, and he came back, and so I said, "When's your next appointment?" And he's like, "I'm not going there." And I said, "What do you mean you have to go to physical therapy?" And he says, No, I'm going to do it myself. I know how to do it, and I'm going to do it myself. And that's exactly what he did. For the next 3 months, he was home. He rehabbed himself. He learned how to walk much better. You see his bandages there. He had bandages on both legs. He would lay down on his bed, and because he's a medic, he would tell, he changed his bandages, but he can't change his own bandages. He's on his stomach. So I had to take pictures of his wounds, which is nothing a mother should ever do for their child. But I took pictures of his wounds and showed him, and he would say, put the bandage here, do this, call the doctor, call the nurse. He ran his rehab. He went back to running. He bought a sap. He went to learn how to sap, to do yoga on the sap. All of this is really, really important. Sap, you like on a board where you
Stand-up paddleboard.
Stand-up paddleboard. Okay, thank you. And all this was very, very important to Yona. This was his driven thing. We'll go to the next slide. A month before the war started, Yona actually went back to his unit to do Vivan. And he thought about this a lot, and I think this also is very, very important point to think about, because he had already done 1.5 years at Malay Ephraim Mechina. He had done 2.5 years of his service. So he really could have left with his head held very high. And he thought about it for a very, very long time. But he decided that it was very, very important for him to return to his unit, to return to his team. And these pictures are really indicative of Yona. When Yona came back, he was very intent, as he was during his rehab, to really get himself in the best shape possible. His being the best he could for his team meant the world to him, and he wasn't going to let his injury hold him back. And one story from somebody from one of the commanding officers there said, Yona, we finished our meetings about 11 o'clock at night. We send the boys to bed much earlier because they have to get up early for all their army things. And we come to see Yona running around the base. I'm like, Yona, what are you doing? Why do you keep running? Go to sleep. And Yona's very, very calm. And he said to him, well, I was at home for 3 months, so I really got fat. And I want to take off some of the weight because I want to be able to run fast and do everything. And so that's what Yona did. It was very, very important. So during those months, late at night, he would run around the base so he could just be in the best shape possible. Next slide. So October 7th, a few days before, my husband and I decided to go to Chicago, where I forgot your name. Maytest. Her son is also in the same community. My son was there on Shikhluk with his wife and 3 kids, and my father-in-law was from Chicago, and he had my father-in-law fallen, and we thought it was a good time. It was quiet here in Israel. It was a good time to go. All our kids were away for Simchat Torah. Let's just go. So we went there on the 5th, and in the morning of the 6th, we sat in Dunkin' Donuts, the kosher one in Skokie, and we called all our kids and video. We spoke to Yona. Everything was fine, and that was fine. In the morning, Shabbat morning, I said to my husband, because his father's in the hospital, and we told the hospital, text us if there's anything, any updates. I said, check your phone before you go. Right? Something we wouldn't normally do, but I said, you have to check it. Maybe they text you because they weren't going to call us. So he opens up his phone, and he doesn't see a text from that, but he sees a text from his sister, and the text is, Dad is okay, but it's horrible what's going on in Israel. So we, at that moment, realized that we needed to open our phones and figure out what was going on. Now, it's already 4 in the afternoon on Shabbat. So those of you who were here, you were kind of gradually being brought into this horrific story. We hit it with a boom at 4 in the afternoon here, which there were hundreds already of hostages. There were hundreds killed. We had no idea what was going on. And of course, panic went through us because we knew that Yona was on high alert. So he was on the first string for that Shabbat to be on high alert. So we called our kids. They said, no, they spoke to Yona Shabbat morning. He's fine. He's in Sderot. And he said he's fine, everything is okay. Okay. So later that night, it's Motzei Chag for us, and I've been on my phone on and off, but I didn't see anything. But I see on the parents group of Duvdevan, of Yona's team, the parents WhatsApp group, and the parents write that Ben Bernstein, which is the commanding officer, and Amir Fisher, one of Yona's close friends, who was a lone soldier from Ghana, his parents were Israeli, he was a lone soldier, were killed. And then I realized that something very serious is going on here, and we need to find Yona. So I call my kids and I tell them 2 guys from the team are killed, you gotta find Yona. And nobody's heard from Yona. Nothing. We haven't heard anything, we don't know anything. Nobody knows anything. Unbeknownst to us, while we're in a panic trying to figure out where is Yona and what's going on, and there's nobody to talk to. There's nobody to talk to in Israel, there's absolutely nobody. My oldest daughter, Nava, who lives in Jerusalem, her close friend, her husband is a Katzin in Duvdevan. He's a commanding officer in Duvdevan. And he sees that Yona appears on the list, and this is the list here from the Defense Department, that says that Yona was killed. Yona was killed with Ben and was killed with Amir Fisher. Now he can't let this information out, he's not qualified to do it, so he just says to the kids, all my kids, go to the hospital, there's helicopters that came from the south, that either went to Beilinson or Sheba, and my kids go to Sheba. In addition to this, my daughter-in-law, who was in Chicago, her father is head of the Halalim of Misrad B'Tachon, meaning that he sees the list. He sees Yona's on this list. Now he knows that we're in Chicago, and he realizes that somehow they're gonna have to bring a team to come tell us that Yona's been killed. So they organize it. Now no team in America at that point was skilled, so they gave them the Cliff Notes 15-minute thing. It is now Sunday morning, and we're in a big panic because we still haven't been able to find Yona. We're not really sleeping. I look outside. Now, Skokie is a very religious neighborhood, so there are no cars there. And I see a car parked outside with the lights on, and people are sitting in it. And I said to my husband, get ready, because they're coming in to tell us it's clearly something's happened, because there's no cars there. So we wait, and at about 8:30 in the morning, almost the exact time I see that, the car outside, my daughter calls, and they say, we found Yona. He's seriously injured, but he's stable, and he's at Sheba Hospital, get on a flight. So 2 hours later, I was on a flight back to Israel, which was no easy thing to do because there were no flights. But, Siyata Dishmaya, somebody got me on a flight. Go to the next slide. I want to explain to you a little bit what happened in Kfar Aza. So they went down, the Duvdevan was one of the first units with Matkal and Maglan to get to Duvdevan. Terrorists got into, already at 6:30, terrorists were in Kfar Aza. Yona's team gets there at 10:30. So I just want you to understand, and I think we forget this a lot, that people were terrified in their safe rooms for 4 hours, not knowing when the army was going to do it. And that was a good situation, that after 4 hours somebody came. So what they did is they came in, this is a gate here. They went through to this neighborhood over here. This is their estimations of that's where I think they can go in and start rescuing families. What there is on the roof, it's about this house here. There is a Shabbat person on the roof. He ran from Kibbutz Kfar Aza without his shoes to come and help save people. He was injured and he was on the roof. Their mission was to rescue him, to go in, obviously to rescue all the other people, but to get the Shabbat person out, because as any person's a terrible hostage to be taken, but certainly you don't want somebody from Shabbat to be go ahead. So they park their Jeep there, and you see they start to go between houses, 1, 2, 3. And what happens here between this house and this house, he's over there. They get here. Now, they don't see this for some reason, but there are a lot of terrorists here and a lot of terrorists here. This is the family, that house is the family Mishpachat Elon, Liora Elon. Her son, Tal, was the head of the first responders group of the kibbutz, and he is killed that morning. They don't yet know it. They're all hiding in their safe house. But they are going by house to house, letting people out. Now between, when they go at the last house before they get to 4, Ben and Amir are first, 2 soldiers, and they're hit and shot. Sadly, Amir was killed on the spot, but Ben, Yona's commanding officer, calls out, "I've been injured," and Yona runs to save him, because Yona's the combat medic. Yona gets hit by 13 bullets. And Yona spoke a lot to us about this, what this experience was like, because he had a bomb blow up on him, on his legs, and he understood what the pain and impact of that was. And he said every bullet that went into his body, and he counted them, it was almost as if the time was slow motion, and he counted 1, 2, all these things were happening in split seconds, but his recollection was each bullet felt like another bomb, like he experienced from Tulkan. Extremely seriously injured. Nobody at that point comes to get him. Yona has to crawl from this space, and go to the next slide. There you can see that's exactly the space that's in front of the house. That's where Ben and Amir shot. And as Yona's pulling Ben, Yona realizes that Ben dies in his arms, that he was also hit. And there's nothing to do. He has to leave them, and he crawls into the house. Now in the house, over there on that side is their mamad, their safe room. And they're in there, and then Duvdevan basically takes over this house as their sort of their command post. Yona goes in. Yona, do one more picture. This is what it looks like after the battle. You can just see kind of the carnage that's here. Yona, thankfully, because, I don't want to say thankfully, being previously injured, he had to really put his head in the right place, because there were a couple other soldiers that were very lightly wounded, but were extremely, extremely traumatized from their wounds. The whole situation was extremely traumatizing. So Yona took command of the situation. He had 1 morphine lollipop in his pocket. He took it out, took his morphine lollipop. He put 2 tourniquets on his right leg, 2 tourniquets on his left leg, because they were riddled with bullets. He had 2 in his back that he couldn't do anything with, and he had 1 here, and he put a tourniquet here. He put those on himself, and then he began to take care of the other guys. They evacuate the 2 other soldiers who were lightly wounded. We do not yet know why they did not evacuate Yona immediately. We're in the middle of an investigation with the army. We have another meeting with them at the end of July, but we have yet to know why they did not evacuate him at that point. His evacuation comes later, and what happens is he goes from all these different spaces where there's an RPG, he gets left here, 1 helicopter comes, another helicopter comes. Basically, it takes him 4 hours from the time he's injured to get to Sheba Hospital. Yona stays awake the entire 4 hours, because Yona understands as a medic that if he falls asleep, he's going to die. Okay? Yona gets to Sheba Hospital. He's one of the first people to get there at 2:30 on Shabbat afternoon. The war started in the morning at 2:30. He got there. He spoke to the surgeons. How do we know this? Because the surgeons told us that Yona spoke to them. Why no one asked him what his name was? Because they don't have tags, or they don't have tags, but Yona came in as an anonymous patient. Okay, so go ahead, I'm going to show you 2 more pictures. Whoops. So this is, right, so this is Ben, that's Yona's commanding officer, and that's Amir Fisher. I'm going to speak a little bit about him, but I always think it's very important to share their bravery and their parents' bravery, their sacrifice, their love for this country, and it's very important to see faces behind names. Okay, let's go to the next one. I want to show you a few things. This is just, there's so many miracles about Yona's 417 days in ICU at Sheba Hospital. One is the bullet that you see lodged in his head, which, if you look right here, you can see it's like a little shiny. That's the bullet in his head. Now, that bullet hit his head and lodged between his skull and his skin. It did not penetrate, it did nothing. And I don't know which one. I'm not the bullet expert, my boys are. But one of these are 3 of the bullets from him. One of these was in his head. And it's truly, truly a miracle that did not affect him at all. So the doctors took him the bullet, and there's just other pictures of the bullet. I want to show you another miracle. This is Yona's actual magazine case. Now, we know Yona was hit by 13 bullets, but there was actually a 14th bullet that hit his magazine case that did not hit him. And we can see it. So, you know, there's a lot of sadness in Yona's stories, but it's very, very important that we speak about the miracles and Hashem's presence. These are clear signs for us of Hashem's presence. Now, I want you to remember that Yona was on the list of soldiers that were killed. Part of the investigation that's going on with the army is to find out who put him, because in order to put a soldier on this official list, which the army did not know we had, but we have ways of getting this official list. We have photographs of it, by the way, so if I lose it, it's okay. 2 people have to identify the body, okay? So we don't know who put Yona on this list. We have no idea, we don't understand. Go to the next, sorry. I'll show you a few of these. We don't know how he got there. That's Yona's magazine case that you saw, and there's one more. And that's the picture where you see Yona and you see Amir Fisher. Those are the soldiers. When I speak to Israelis, a lot of people just know these names. It's somebody's brother, somebody's cousin. It's just unbelievable when you show a list like this. This is from the 7th of October. You know, I have my theories sometimes, because the army said there's not a WhatsApp. They haven't found a trace of anything, of anyone, of nothing. There's 0 paper trails to how Yona got on this list. I truly believe, that's why this investigation doesn't really mean much to me, because I think that on October 7th, Yona was supposed to die. And I think that God said to him and said, you know what, this is your 2nd injury. I see you worked really hard on the first one. Show me what you got. And I'm gonna let it go, okay? Because you're on my list, but let's see what you can do with it. And we are incredibly grateful for Yona's 417 days in ICU. I want to now share, the next one is a video, so just make sure the volume's up.
Let me go. I don't wanna be your hero. I don't wanna be a big man. Just wanna fight with everyone else. Your masquerade. I don't wanna be a part of your parade.
song very much symbolized for us a lot about Yona. Yona's story is miraculous and almost superhuman when we look at all the things he went through in the ICU. But he doesn't want to be remembered as a hero. He just is Yona. And I want to talk a little bit about what makes Yona Yona. Not the hero and not the stories, but who Yona really is to us. Can we go to the next slide? So what makes Yona Yona? Yona, I'm going to talk about several areas of Yona's life. I'm going to talk about his family, friendship, his medic, his purpose, and his emunah. And I think all of these are really, really important in understanding how Yona fought for so long against so much odds. Just a few statistics about Yona in the hospital. He had over 11 pneumonias, and each pneumonia went into septic shock. So those were 11 known times that he almost died. When you go into septic shock, you're about to die. And they would routinely call in, they would say to us, you need to call the kids in now, you need to call the kids in. And that's kind of how we peppered 417 days of being on this, is he gonna live, is he gonna die? We're living right now, so let's just take it. When I got to the hospital on the 8th of October, right, I got on the 8th of October, I landed, on the 9th of October, I got there. I went into the ICU unit, and Yona's was unconscious, and the doctor came to me and he said, you need to sign this form immediately. Yona's in septic shock. We need to amputate his leg. If you don't sign, he's going to die. And if you don't sign, I'm going to get two other doctors because we have to take him to surgery now. And that's how I, as a mom, started my 417 days with Yona. Of course, I signed. Yona went on to have several other amputations. He had catastrophic liver failure, kidney failure, endless operations, but every single time, he just flipped it. Every single time. I'm going to share with you some of the things. But we began to live our life in ICU. My husband and I moved into the hospital, and we lived in Sheba Baby, which was kind of a contrast to see babies being born during the war and then going over to ICU. Yona wasn't the only soldier. There were a lot of other soldiers that were hospitalized, but it was just the war. So go to the next slide. So I think Yona's desire to live, I know, because the nurses had told me this, was that Yona did not want to make us sad. He knew how hard his first injury was, and he was going to fight to stay alive. And I think the essence of family is really caring so much for the other people in your family that you're willing to fight forever, and that's what Yona did. Go to the next slide. Our family life went on. As you see, that's Levy right next to me. So she's my youngest daughter. She was also a Nishmat graduate, and that's her baby. They live in Jerusalem. Now, they were supposed to give birth in Jerusalem, but it was clear that she was going to give birth at Sheba, and she gave birth at Sheba. Yona, if you see, is 9 days after another serious brush with death. He had already had one leg amputated. He had above the knee. He had the second leg amputated above the knee, and above the knee on his right leg, there was a burst. He had one artery left. He had usually 3 arteries, I think. He had one that was left that was working. That burst, he had to have emergency surgery, and that had to be removed, which is called a hip disarticulation. So from the hip on the right side, it had to be taken off. What I want you to remember is not necessarily all those details, but I want you to see Yona smiling. If you see, Yona's not in a hospital gown and you don't see that there are about 50 wires on Yona at any one time, but Yona wanted to come in a Shabbat shirt. You see he has 2 zondas, 2 feeding tubes, because part of his stomach is wrecked, so part of the food has to go around. None of that mattered. People sat around, ate and drank. Yona wanted to be there. He wanted to be very happy there, and he wanted to show up in his Shabbat shirt. And that was super important to him. I want to tell you what Levy named her son, or their son, Noam. They named him Liam, and that's like the initials for Lo Yimadu Od Milchama. We shouldn't have any more wars. And that's Liam's name. Liam is now 1 year and 8 months, 9 months. Okay, we'll go to the next one. This is just another picture in our room with almost everybody's there, all the kids and spouses, and We hung out a lot in ICU. You can see it's not a friendly place to be with lots of machines and noises. But it really didn't matter. I would get there early in the morning. I would get up about 5 in the morning, go for a walk around Sheba, because I always did. I would call over the nurse's station about 5:30. Now, you're legally not allowed to do this, but because we were VIP patients, because we've been there so long and through so much, the nurses would tell me the blood results because we were very, very nervous every day, waking up. What are the blood tests? What's his hemoglobin? What's his procalcitonin? All these things that we knew nothing about, we understood were life-threatening, and slightly switches here and there meant it was going to be a good day and we were going to be able to do some stuff. So I would call over then. I would get there early. I want to say my father-in-law passed away in this period too. Right after Levy gave birth, about 3 weeks later, my father-in-law passed away. We could not, obviously nobody went to the funeral. We were in the room and we did a Zoom for the funeral. But my husband started saying Kaddish for his father, and so he had to go every morning. The hospital was 1 million, and so he had to go every morning to that million. I would get there early, he would stay late. But Yona was never alone. This was very, very important. All the kids took turns. A lot of the men you see here were in Miluim at the time, so the women were coming. They all took turns. They took turns on Shabbatot to stay with us, the kids. Okay, let's go to the next one. The next one is a video, so. Yes, that's my granddaughter. they were on Shechut. She had come with my son. He'd come a lot from Chicago to help us out and to be with Yona. This is a deck outside of ICU that we would take Yona out when the weather was nice, because ICU is it's a big safe room. There's 18 beds. It's a brand. It was just initiated at the war. So there's no windows, there's no air, there's no nothing, and you can imagine being there morning, noon, and night. You could go crazy. Yona didn't, miraculously, and we would come out here and hang out here. We would daven out here on Friday nights. We would have Sadash Sheet out here. That's just the nurse. There's a funny story. The nurse back there, her name is Riham, and Riham had a hijab when Yona woke up for the first time. Now Yona was sedated for about 3 weeks. He wakes up and he sees Riham there, and she says to him, Yona, you're in Sheba Hospital and everything is okay. But Yona doesn't understand that. Yona sees her hijab, and he doesn't hear her say Sheba because he's kind of drugged, highly drugged. He thinks she says Shifa. So he thinks he's been captured, right? He thinks he's been taken hostage because this was the biggest, they all knew that when they were waiting, that they shouldn't all be taken hostage, right? So he goes ballistic and had to bring in another nurse to calm him down because he actually thought he was in Shifa Hospital. Thankfully he wasn't. We'll go to the next one. So this is a great picture. I love this one of Yona and me, and I always say that as hard as it was, Yona and I spent a ton of time together, probably more so than is mentally healthy for a mother and a son to spend together at his age, but we really spent a lot of time together. I would come in early in the morning. He would pick out what he wanted for breakfast. The chef at Sheba would make him personalized breakfast because nutrition was very important, and hospital food is awful. If you want to get well, don't eat hospital food, right? So Yona had a special menu that he could do, and people from Duduvan would bring home cooked meals for lunch for him. Yona had a very big appetite. Because he wasn't actually allowed to eat or drink for about 6 months. So when he was finally able to learn to swallow again and to talk again, everything for Yona was about the food. I can go to the next one. We're very grateful. This is at our home. This is in August. It was the idea of the head of the ICU to bring Yona home as a push for his to get to his rehab, because everything we did while Yona was there was go to rehab. We're getting to rehab, we're getting to rehab, you're getting your legs. In America, we're moving forward. This was everything we talked about. So coming home was very, very important. So we had a big thing where some doctors and nurses came home, his friends came over, and there we are, we got the hospital bed in our living room. And that was very important because that was the only time that actually Yona came home after his injury. Okay, next one. This is, we're doing a TED Talk. That's my daughter-in-law in Chicago. Those things that we did just to pass the time. Okay, next one. Yona loved Rabbi Jonathan Zaks. As a matter of fact, he learned every Friday with a friend. He had a friend who was in the rabbinate, who was from his mechina, who was in the rabbinate, and so he had a much more flexible schedule, and he could learn whenever Yona wanted to. So on Fridays, Yona tried to learn if he wasn't doing anything, so they always learned Rabbi Zaks' Parshat Shavua. Friends are very, very important. Yona is super beloved by so many people, and it's very funny because every friend felt that he was like Yona's best friend, okay? And Yona just gave them that experience. Yona's friends spent many Shabbatot with us. We were in the hospital for 58 Shabbatot, and you can imagine as a religious person, it's hard for anybody, but certainly dealing with Shabbat in a hospital and all the restrictions, how awful that could be. And they came and we davened in his room, and we had meals with his friends, and they were really an integral part of Yona's healing. Yona also was a big believer in Haknasat Orchim, and as soon as he was well enough to start getting friends, he said to me, my friends, they're coming, the team is coming, or these friends are coming, and he gave me this long list of food that he wanted me to get. And I said, Yona, why do you can't eat? Yona couldn't eat or drink for, like I said, for many months, and he said, no, I want it for my friends. And I really understood because we had gotten used to ICU. It's a very scary place. I don't know if you've ever been to a normal ICU room. It's very, very scary. There are lots of machines, there's lots of things, there's smells, there's sights, it's a very scary place. And Yona really wanted his friends to feel comfortable. And he couldn't eat or drink, but he wanted everybody else to eat or drink and kind of feel like they were in his living room. And it became this thing that everybody who came to Yona had to have food. As a matter of fact, the hospital, the head of the ICU came to me, she said, you can't have all this food in ICU, we don't allow it. But as always with Yona, everybody kind of gave him a pass because it was coming from such a good place. Okay, let's go to the next one. This is just more pictures of his friends hanging out. This bracelet on the bottom, this is Yona's bracelet. His very close friends had that made. It's Azlat, Ani, Zami, Zamin, Lekef Tamid. That was their sisma of their group. Yeah, they were eating, they're there, they took Yona out. There's a big lake at Sheba, they would go out. This is Eitan Oster. Eitan Oster was killed Erev Rosh Hashanah. He was in Maglan in Lebanon. He was a childhood friend of Yona's. They were in Hadrichat Ben Akiva together, and he's buried 2 rows ahead of him in Har Herzl. He's also from the sorry. Okay, just I'll tell you here. This is another thing that happened. In all the misery of the war, of course, people still get married. And several of Yona's best friends got married, and they all wanted to come because Yona obviously couldn't be there. So this is just a pre-wedding. The guy on the left is the one getting married. You can watch this. This way of making, and if you just look at that room, it's overwhelming, but he just made it like a party. I don't know how he did it. I want to show the next one's a video, so hang on. We would also do Kabbalat Shabbat. It was very important for everybody, for all our Ruach. Because we couldn't bring the grandkids in, because you're not allowed to bring little kids into ICU, we did one Kabbalat Shabbat in one of the lobbies. So you're going to see a video now, the next one with friends and grandkids. I want to show you next, the next slide, you can go ahead. These are people that wanted to come see Yona. So it's a wide variety. We have the president, we have Naftali Bennett, who has stayed in touch with us. Herzl Levy has stayed in touch with us. There's Shusha. There's many people that came. There's Shuli was the best. They came. Asikon came as Shuli. I don't know if you know. He's a Israeli actor, very funny. He came in his wig, and we just had a great time, a lot of laughs. There's Avram Fried who came. That's my son Aviel playing the guitar. We had a lot of singers. It's very interesting about Bibi Netanyahu. Why did he get there? So before Yom Ha'atzmaut, the army asked us in the hospital, there's an army that's in the hospital called Ramstein, they said, who does Yona want to meet? Does he want to meet the Ramatkal, or does he want to meet Bibi? So Yona, in true Yona form, said, I want to meet them both. Right? So I told them, like, okay, we're on it. Now the night before, about, I don't know, a week ahead, the night before they called and they said, we're really sorry, but Bibi's not going to make it. I said, what do you mean he's not going to make it? He says, well, his schedule's very busy and he can't make it. And I said, well, is he going anywhere else in Sheba? They said, yes, he's going to the rehab, to Shikoum. And I said, wait a minute. Bibi's going to Shikoum and not coming to the ICU. He said, yes. He said, then the soldier says to me, do you think we could bring Yona over there? I said, no. And not only that, I said, I don't know if you're a parent. But I'm going to speak to you as I'm talking about my child. I told Yona that Bibi was coming. You told me he was coming. Bibi needs to come. I don't know how you're going to do this. I don't really care. But Bibi needs to be here. And this soldier, we learned afterwards, this 35-year-old Haredi guy from Bnei Brak who enlisted after the 7th of October, who's a father of 5 children, and that really spoke to him. So he stayed up all night. I think he called every rabbi he knew who was connected to Bibi, and Bibi came to Yona, and went to the rehab. The next I'm going to show you, because I said a lot of people came to sing with Yona. It was very important, so you're going to see a video now of the people who come to sing with Yona.
Give it a bit of flow.
Let it move.
Cassie?
With the Wi-Fi.
You make a hotspot.
But I would just try to play it
Just
without
like-
opening the presentation, just play it right on the screen.
Okay.
Reload the page.
They're not playing.
Yeah, refresh.
Refresh the page, alright? Shows on the shoulders.
Let's skip ahead.
I
don't want to
touch it. Yeah.
Anyway, the rifle's better than
Yeah.
here in Canada.
There's something wrong.
Something's corrupted with the file.
Yeah.
There's a lot of amazing singers and performances, but we'll move on, so we'll go to the next one. So I want to talk a little bit about Yona as a combat medic.
Let's try one more time.
Okay. When I was first working on my presentation, I wanted to see what the IDF's medic's oath was, and so I just want to read to you because it's very, I think, very much symbolizes Yona. And it's just in English, I'll read it to you, it's very short. I will always be my brother's keeper, whether in battle, on a stretcher, or at their bedside. I swear that my heart will be forever engraved with the highest commandment of sacrifice, to never leave the wounded in the field. I hereby swear. Let's go to the next one. So these are pictures. That's Yona and Amir. They're very, very close. And this is Yona with Ben, that's his commanding officer. And Yona gave that actual picture to Ben's parents on Memorial Day, 2024. Often Amir's parents came to visit, and Ben's parents came a few times, and the first thing that Yona said to the Bernstein family was that he was very sorry, and he felt very bad that he couldn't save Ben. And he really did feel a personal responsibility that he could not save Ben at that time. They both had very, very long-term girlfriends, like years and years and years, and we became friendly with them, the two girlfriends as well. They came to visit us a lot. And the first time they came to visit, they weren't able to see Yona because he was sedated, and they said, we want you to tell Yona something. I said, what is it? And they said, you need to thank Yona for us. Now, these are girlfriends who lost their partners they've been with for over 5 years. And I said, well, what do you want me to thank them for? You know, they're dead, like, you know, what do you want? And they said, you need to let him know that our boyfriends have Furat Be'eretz Israel. They have burial in Israel, and for that we're grateful. And it just made me think about young people in this country, and that's where their gratitude was, that they didn't have to wait for bodies like unfortunate people are living now, and they were grateful to be able to go to their boyfriend's camera. We'll go to the next one. There's a video here, but we don't, oh, now it's playing. These are just different bombs that went off for Yona that I like to do. I think they're just different bombs and things that they wrote for Yona. These are tributes to Yona. I don't get it still, but Yona was very touched by these. Okay, so the next one. So I want to talk a little bit about this, how Yona did what he did. Yona loved challenges in general. He was a kid who loved extreme things. He didn't like to compete with anybody, only himself. So he was an amazing runner, and he would run in the heat of Modi'in, you know, the end of July, right before Shabbat, come back completely drenched, drink 2 liters of water, and just like love it. Right? So he loved that kind of thing, and that's what made him tick. Yona was very, very committed, as we all were, as well as the medical team, that Yona should get to Shikun, to rehab. And they had a set of weights that were purchased for Yona. No, nobody in ICU ever does weights, but Yona was doing weights, which was like an unbelievable thing. He had PT workouts. His friends would come in the afternoon and do more weights workouts with him. He knew what he was living for. And my middle son, who was 26, said to me during the Shiva, Ima, you shouldn't be so sad at the Shiva. I said, why? He said, because Yona knew what he was living for. He said to me in Hebrew, he knew what his purpose was. And he pointed at me like this. He says, Ima, people your age don't know what they're living for. He said, Yona knew, and Yona did what he was supposed to do. From our perspective, it was short, but he accomplished what he was supposed to do. You should be happy for him. And I think that kind of outlook is a lot of the ways that we begin to formulate our emunah. I'm going to talk about it in just a minute. There's one more video here. Play it. See Yona lifting weights. His friends were very hard on him. The PT, the woman who did physical therapy, she always had Rahmanus on and she couldn't push him, but the friends that came in, Yona, we're doing a workout, let's go, harder, harder. He didn't have a lot of choices. Okay, let's go to the next slide. I want to talk about emunah, and I think this is, Rabbi Zach's quote here is really how we all live. Let's move on. I just want to show a few more pictures on the next slide. This is Yona lighting Hanukkah candles here. He was able to say Gomel. I want to talk a little bit about his tefillin. First of all, I've had the responsibility of helping Yona daven, which is a very funny thing for a mom to do because I do not get how to wrap the things, and Yona would teach me every day how to wrap up his tefillin, and I always messed it up. My husband always had to come and fix it. But Yona would always wake up and ask for his tefillin. And after I told you that 9 days before the bris of our grandson Liam, Yona had a very serious brush with death and had a very radical amputation. When he woke up, they had to explain what had happened, which was a horrific thing. It was a huge setback. Having 2 above-knee amputations, which there are a lot of soldiers that have that now, is livable. It's really livable. You get prosthetics, you can do it. Yona's radical amputation really completely changed his chances for ever walking again. And so they brought in doctors and nurses and psychologists. They're always worried how he's going to respond. And so the doctors tell him. And so Yona looks at us and he says, "What time is it?" What time it is? Like 4 or 5. And he says, "When is Shkia?" And Shkia that day was a bit later. And he said, "Bring me my tefillin." And I think that was one of the most poignant messages for us of dealing with heartache, because he could have sat around and cried and lost it and screamed and said, "This is not fair, why me, why is God torturing me, why I should have died." You know, you want to realize that our faith in God is really what's going to get us through this. And that's what he did at that moment. He reached for God, and he davened. And that's what, one of the messages we take away from him. Go to the next one. These are just different things we did throughout his, all these different things for Yona's recovery. We were very big believers in, I told you, in Tehillim. We had Tehillim groups. We had all these good deeds, gemach. People did all sorts of things. You go to the next slide. Also, just more things that we did for Yona. There was also lots and lots of Hafrashot Chala all around the world. There's a whole video on his Instagram page if you want to see all the Hafrashot Chala throughout the world. If you see in the English where it says Refuah Shalema, that is our Tehillim page. We, through the course of Yona's fight, we had over 50,000 chapters of Tehillim read. And I will tell you 100%, none of us have a doubt that the reading of those Tehillim directly influenced Yona's life. It kept him going, 100%, because Yona was at death's doorstep so many times. And the doctors had no explanation. I want to tell you one story. We were very close. Keely Trooper came to visit us a lot, and Keely said to me, I called him one day, I said, "Keely, the doctors don't know what they're doing. I'm really worried. I don't think they know what they're doing, and I'm worried. We're losing Yona." And he said, okay, let me call the head of the hospital, Professor Christ, who was a good friend of his. And Professor Christ calls him, and Keely calls me back a few minutes later, and he said, well, I spoke to Professor Christ. I said, what did he say? And he said, "You're right. They don't know what they're doing." I said, "What do you mean?" He said, "Well, they don't know what they're doing. Nobody can explain how Yona stays alive. They can't explain how he's getting better." We had a situation in June of 2024 where Yona had catastrophic liver failure, and we were getting ready to board a plane to go to Miami for a liver and kidney transplant, which is incredibly dangerous in any event, but certainly in his still being an ICU patient. And when the doctor came in to say, "Yona, we're going to go," his answer was, "Okay, when are we going? Let's go. Yalla." And that was Yona. That was just Yona, ready to go, ready to do. And so we lived in this space where doctors really did not know anything about Yona, but were in awe of his fight, and they fought. Let's go to the next slide. What happened was at the Shiva, a lot of people came to us, a lot of teachers who had been davening for Yona. We daven for a lot of soldiers, but more often than not, the soldier gets better and then we don't daven for anymore. But Yona was a very, very long time patient where a lot of people davened, and people came and said, what do I tell my students? They're distraught. Yona died and they daven so much, and how do we understand it? And I don't know why they were asking me. I'm not going to interrupt. But what we've decided to do, certainly my husband and I, is really start to learn a lot more about Chassidut, start to learn a lot more things, and understanding basically that we don't understand why. That our life is like this iceberg. An iceberg has like this little piece here and this whole piece underground that we don't see. And that's what we really liken Yona's life to. That is our explanation that we live with, as Jonathan Sachs said, with this uncertainty that we don't know. And that's where we need to be. And that's where we're trying to all of ourselves, all of the family tried to be in that space of not asking how and why and what, being in the space of accepting what's happened and living with the pain and living with the sadness, but carrying on Yona's legacy. That has become very, very important to us to carry on his legacy. Okay? So Yona's buried in Har Herzl. This is his grave right after the little kids, grandkids did that. He's in part 18 Chakash Monasre. Like I said, his friend is 2 rows ahead of him. The first row is Nati Eitan, who was from Sheshesh. He was also a combat medic who was killed in December. Nati was Yona's chavruta from Mother Ephraim. They went together for a year and a half. And Nati came after Yona was injured. He came to visit Yona before he went into Aza. And he left a video because Yona wasn't awake. And the night that Yona did his Birkat HaGomel, which I showed you the picture of Hanukkah, was the night that Nati was killed. So it's a very special place for us to go and to remember. Can we go to the next one? Everybody's probably really familiar with Dr. Franco, which a Holocaust survivor, a psychiatrist, and a therapist, and really this is Yona, choosing at every moment how he's going to react, how he's going to act. You go to the next one. So we are now B'charta B'chaim. I have to add B'charta B'chaim Acheret. So we've chosen a different life. We're not living the same life that we live. And a lot of people say B'charta B'chaim, Mamshichim B'chaim, and I add Acheret because our life is different. We're all choosing our life, but it is different. It's a life with a lot of pain, a lot of missing, but it's also a lot of significance and a lot of passion, like Yona did. Next slide. There's just a few kids that were named after Yona. They're very cute. People who didn't even know us. Go to the next slide. Some Tu B'Shvat. Those are a couple of our grandkids. Planting that people did for Yona, and people send us pictures. People we don't know a lot of times do these things that are touched by Yona's story. Go to the next one. These are also things that went on. Up there you see the hat. This is what his friends did. Now this is actually kind of funny. This says, "Why not?" Now my husband tells terrible jokes, those dad jokes, and whenever he would serve wine, they always make a joke of saying, do you want to have some wine? Why not? Right? This is this joke. Now Yona used to get like, stop saying those jokes. But what we found out in the shiva was that Yona would say all of my husband's terrible jokes. Basically kind of idolized him. So his friends made this. So we have Mamshichim B'derech Shel Yona Brief, and you see Why Not on it. In the middle you see Yona, that's from the yeshiva in Modi'in, Lapid B'nai Akiva Yeshiva, lost five soldiers. There's different things. Somebody did a gamach here. The middle one here is in Lud. We don't know these people, but they heard that Yona loved to do Hachmasat Orchim. So they made a gamach in Yona's name for things that people might need for Hachmasat Orchim. This is in off of the train station in Silverdor. The train station in Silverdor. We don't know who did this. It has Yona's name. It has a little story about him. Somebody sent it to us. We don't know. Up there, that's the Sar Eli Cohen. We're working with him now. He's building a Tatzpit. It's going to be called Tatzpit Yona in Ezor Shaki Salon. And that hopefully will open in August. There's a Sefer Torah down here that they donated to Shiva, and they gave books for Yona. Go ahead. Next one. It's a bunch of articles. So if you just look at Yona, you can just see lots and lots of articles about him. You can go to the next one. And this is what I want to share with you guys. Yona at the end of August was feeling very good. I didn't say how many. Yona had a terrible problem of being a clotter and a bleeder. Two terrible things. So he either would clot, and it was extremely dangerous. Obviously, you can die from a clot, or you could bleed out. And he had both of these conditions due to the severity of his injuries. And Yona in August said to us, you know what? I really want to. I want to give back blood because I got so much blood. And Yona got a lot of blood. And he said, and I said, okay, so let's do a blood drive. So we were going to do a blood drive with Duv Divan. But then Yona became very, very ill, and then unfortunately he passed away. So on his birthday, we decided this is what we were going to do on his birthday. We were going to go in Yona's footsteps and work on saving life. So we did a blood drive. This is going to be a yearly thing on his birthday, on March 28th. So if you regularly give blood 3 months before March 28th, don't give blood, okay? So that you can give, or don't after that. We had as our our goal, 417 pints of blood or units of blood for Yona's 470 days of hospitalization. We reached 470. This we organized in about, I don't know, a month and a half. We are starting already right after the Chagim to organize the next one. We did it in conjunction with MADA, with Sheba Hospital and Duke Devan. So there's a lot of really nice things in here, pictures from the blood drive. We gave out these bracelets, and they asked us, what's the theme? Like, you have to have a theme. So right away we said, from Friends, we said the words, "I'll be there for you," which of course is what really giving blood is about, being there for someone else and saving a life. And we always called Yona our family's Joey. He was very much like Joey in his playfulness, so we thought this was very appropriate. I want to share a couple more slides and then we're done. This is from Sheba Hospital. Sheba Hospital has been thinking what to do because of first of all, they've learned so much from Yona. They've changed protocols, they've changed a lot of things in how they treat patients and how they treat soldiers and how they treat soldiers who bleed. And one thing they want to do is purchase something called a simulator. This is a life-saving simulator which teaches the teams when you get into an emergency situation where somebody's going to die, all these different things that you can do. And so we're helping them fundraise. When I speak in the States, sometimes I'm going in August, and so we're helping them fundraise. But what they decided to do around this was that they're going to call this simulator, Yona. And go to the next one. They've created a team, and they call it Sevet Yona. So you see it's Hadrichat Tipul Nimratz, and this is Sevet Yona. And this is about Yona. Yona ran to save lives, and this is what this team is going to do, to go around to all the different departments to teach all the staffs how they can save lives based on what they learned from Yona's fight. So we feel very grateful for that. Just one more slide. And thank you very much for listening. If anybody wants to ask any questions, you're welcome to. We have a daily halacha yomit. If you just put your phone there, you can get those. We also have a group where people send in pictures about Yona. It's very, very moving. And there's also an Instagram, so you can just take your phone there and record any of that. And I want to show you one more thing before we finish. This is Yona's book. When Yona was hospitalized, he wanted to, he had a lot of time, and he decided to make a book. He did one in high school that was called Hashanim HaYafot, and he called this Hashanim HaYafot Shtayim, and this is all about his army service. And this is what he did in his bedside. And in some amazing way, we see this is what Yona wants us to remember about him. He did the entire thing. He picked out the pictures, everything. And I will tell you there are pictures of his injury, so if you want to look at it, I'm going to tell you to be careful. The first page is dedicated to Nati, his chavruta. I think there's a picture of them mourning together. Nati who was killed. But there's a lot of beautiful pictures about his service, and I think that this is Yona. When Yona was making this, we were all convinced that he's going on to rehab. So I don't think this was meant as a goodbye, but I think it really is a legacy for us. And thank you all for listening. And,
Thank you so much. This was very special. Thank you.